Welcome to the 700 Club. From a Jewish man being shot in Chicago to all-out calls for Jew hunts, anti-Semitic violence is sending shockwaves across communities worldwide.
CBN's Brody reports on the latest wave of attacks and explores possible solutions to the growing crisis.
It has felt like it's open season on the Jews, certainly since October 7th and the massacre in Israel. It seems to have ignited a terrible bloodlust against Jews around the world.
This scene from Amsterdam, where organized mobs targeted Israeli soccer fans. Attackers calling for a, quote, Jew hunt led to the eruption of violence. Despite a nationwide ban on demonstrations there, pro-Palestinian protests led to further clashes and more than a dozen arrests. In Chicago, a Jewish man shot walking to a synagogue in broad daylight. He survived, and it's being investigated as a hate crime. And protesters waving Nazi flags in Howell, Michigan, gathered outside the American Legion Post, hosting a performance of the Diary of Anne Frank.
There is a strain of radical Islam also around the world that we've seen with mass migration to Europe and the United States that is all too willing to go along with this radical philosophy that is Jew-hating.
Experts monitoring this trend, like former State Department envoy Ellie Cohanim, says with radical ideology spreading faster than ever, governments worldwide need to take stronger action.
We saw a 50% rise in the number of Jews that are now hiding their identity.
E.J. Kimball with the Combat Antisemitism movement sees a disease of hate spreading, and that 1 in 5 Jewish American children have experienced antisemitism since October 7th. He tells CBN News a simple solution is calling out antisemitism for what it is.
A definition of anti-Semitism called the IHRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. It is the gold standard definition.
The beginning of that definition being anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews.
When you adopt the definition, which is the first step, it sends a message. But when you actually embrace that definition and enforce it and implement it, that's where law enforcement now has the tools to stop this stuff.
As reports of these incidents increase, Jewish communities are calling for greater solidarity and action from all faiths.
But even more than that, you've got to stand up and call out evil when it rears its ugly head. And that means when in Washington, D.C. last week on the anniversary of Kristallnacht, when the one kosher restaurant was attacked, the windows were smashed in, it means coming out, condemning it for what it is.
Both Kimball and Cohanim agree that confronting this issue goes beyond symbolic gestures. It requires enforcing existing laws and empowering communities to stand firm against hatred. Brody, CBN News.
Well, anti-Semitism is a spiritual force. The rabbis say in every single generation, a Haman arises who wants to wipe the Jews out. Let's get familiar with the terminology. If you want to know that definition, it's holocaustremembrance.com. It's available on cbnnews.com if you want a link back to it. But we need to look beyond what are definitions and look to the spirit behind it. There is an enemy of our souls, and he has been around for a long time. And he understands God's time clock. He understands what that means. He understands what the restoration of the modern state of Israel means. He wants to do everything in his power to stop it. So we as Christians need to stand with our brothers and sisters in the faith. We're grafted into that olive tree. That's what the Apostle Paul clearly wrote. We're grafted into it. Their God is our God. Their Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is ours. Their prophets are ours, and we need to stand with them in their time of need and resist this. It's a spiritual force, and we need to respond with weapons that are not carnal, but are spiritual. We should pray, and we should stand with them and let them know they're not alone in this battle. We're with them in it.